Good evening, Gills fans. Welcome back to the latest episode of Gills in the Blood TV. It is match day review time, as is always on a Sunday evening, and it's a bit of a rarity this week. It's a Gills win to talk about. They've been pretty few and far between over recent weeks, I think it's fair to say, and I'm pleased to say that I am once again joined by my co-host Reese, and we do have a Salford City fan, and I think it's fair to say friend of the channel now, as he's made so many appearances. He's almost part of the furniture. It is Danny Shepherd, who does run the brilliant One Up Top Salford City Podcast. You don't need to be following him because you all did that when I told you during the week to go and do it. But I will put his details again in the description at the bottom of the video. So go and give him a follow for all Salford City perspective, not just on this weekend, but throughout the season. Does some brilliant work. Number one, hope you're both well.
Not bad, cold, but yeah, not too bad.
The irony of not going to the game yesterday, Matt, is I'm the one that's got the cold, I think.
Yeah, you're the one that's the most poorly, all three of us. So, right, let's crack on before Reese gives up and has to be substituted. We'll go back to 2:00 Saturday afternoon, and I think it's fair to say, Reese, that after his press conference in the run-up to the game, Mark Bonner was going to have to make a handful of changes at the very least, given that he had insinuated some players didn't care as much as perhaps they should, and that was the case. There was probably an enforced change in goal. Glenn Morris coming for the injured Jake Turner, who had his face rearranged by a football in Wednesday's defeat at Bromley. And then it was a back four, but it was a back four with a difference. Ramo Hutton dropped out. So you can make of that what you will, Gills fans. It was Harry Webster making his league debut, the 18-year-old at right back. It was then a familiar centre-back pairing of Maxima, the captain, and Connor Masterson. Max Clark, after his wife having a baby, so congratulations to them, came back in at left back. But in front, it was another four. It was a good old-fashioned 4-4-2, to coin a phrase from a wonderful film that we all watched in our younger years. I won't use it exactly because there might be children watching, but it was a quartet of Joe Bode, Ethan Coleman, Robbie McKenzie, and Jaden Clark in midfield. And then it was the Big Bash twins up front. It was Elliot Nevitt and Josh Andrews starting together for what is probably the first time in a Gillingham shirt. Was you happy with the lineup, Reese? Was there any surprises? I think the biggest one was Webster, wasn't it?
Yeah, it is. But like then Bonner was alluding to the fact that he's going to have to make some changes, and I think there had to be someone from the youth setup in there at least. And we know Webster has capabilities. I was surprised that he was actually put straight in there, but you know what a time to really show what you're made of. So yeah, it was both surprised. It was not surprising it was changed up, but I was surprised that actually, you know, he gave Webster his start there. And yeah, I was actually, when it popped up on Twitter yesterday, I was secretly like, yeah, that's good. I'm really happy to see that lineup, and it's going to be something a little bit different, I reckon.
Yeah, especially and given the fact that you're coming into a side that's not playing well, that's under pressure, that's been getting criticism from the fan base. It's different bringing a kid into a team that's winning every week and sitting top of the league. So it's a fair play to Mark Bonner for being brave. And it just, how great was it to see a homegrown right-hand side with him and Joe Bode? Unfortunately, Bode's afternoon was cut short, but to see them two starting in tandem was absolutely superb.
No, it really was, and it's nice that we get a little bit of this youth setup coming through as well. And I think over years, we have had bits and bobs, but it's actually to have these players that can actually not just come in as a cameo appearance, but genuinely make an impact in the game, and that shows a bit of promise for the future we have at the club for homegrown players.
Absolutely. We'll come to you now, Danny. Salford City lined up in a version of a 3-5-2, which I don't think there was any surprise there. So it was Young in goal. It was a defensive trio of Edwards, Tilt and Garbett. In front, it was then Minoga, Forner, Lund, Ashley, Unmai, and a front two of Stockton and Woodburn. In terms of your lineup, any shocks?
I mean, the only thing I'd say, it is a 3-5-2 to all intents. I think Ashley, Simon Ashley tends to play, I call it a 3-1-4-2, because if you look at his heat maps, he always tends to drift into that back three.
I couldn't work out, because his heat map had him in both halves, so I didn't know if he was meant to be the defensive one or even the one that was the 10. It was almost like he was doing everything in there. I should have just been safe and said it was 3-5-2 and stuck with it.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you can look at it almost as a V, but it just in terms of like heat maps as well, I did notice that our heat map showed that we were massively higher up the pitch in respect to yourselves in most of it. You seemed like you were camped in a just above the halfway line and kind of mainly behind, whereas we were mostly in your half. That's to come in terms of the path of the game. Any surprises team selection wise? I think Killian Kouassi not starting personally is a bit of a surprise, because we had, who do we have again? Stockton and Woodburn. Yeah, I mean, Woodburn is not a striker. He's more of a kind of a little nippy fella who might run onto some layoffs. The fact that we've played Stockton quite a bit recently is puzzling basically everybody, fans, friends, everyone I know connected with Salford, because people just think we're putting him in the shop window to try and get rid of him in January. So that's someone who's gone stale in the period of 2 or 3 months. And Killian Kouassi was brought in, everything I've heard, is our number one main striker. If he's fit, then he plays. And I can only think that when you look at, say, the post-match and when Cal's talking about the lack of ruthlessness, there have been some chances that Killian, as well as others, have missed. But I think the biggest surprise was the fact that Killian started the game on the bench for me. Yeah.
I'll come to you then quickly, Reece, because I must admit that I thought he was probably the most effective of the Salford front men that we saw. He made an impact in more ways than one when he came on. I know Stockton had his chance first half, which we'll get to, and Stockton likes to put himself about, so you see him for other reasons than potentially just playing the game of football. I genuinely forgot Ben Woodburn had actually played until I was looking at the notes to say that he'd been bought off for Kouassi. That's as anonymous as I thought he was. It was quite a surprise to see his name listed in the notes.
Yeah, I actually, when Kouassi came on, actually, I was genuinely impressed. Actually, it was really, he's making a solid impact. That was one to always look out for. Alongside, I thought Namai had a decent game as well. He was always a bit of a tricky character. Had to keep an eye on as well. But yeah, when Kouassi came on, definitely was one that we had to had to contain to a certain extent.
Yeah. We'll get to that. Obviously, the bits and bobs in the game. I've written a paragraph, as I always do, and I thought it was a game played at full throttle despite the conditions, where we seemed to have more chances, but Salford had the more clear cut. As a home fan, we probably feel we did just enough to get ourselves over the line, but I can imagine Danny, as a City supporter, is frustrated that not one of them big chances is taken, and you probably, based on possession, thought you deserved something from the football match.
Oof. Yeah, I mean, possession for me is one of the least important statistics. It's one I actually talked to you about in the preview, Matt. You know, when I was saying that your better run this season was done without the ball, 30 to 40% possession, wasn't it? So it's one of those, Pep Guardiola has sent us all off on a gravy train that we shouldn't really be following, I think. So it's, again, I'll kind of reference Cal Robinson, that I watched both managers' post-match, and he was saying that not even the most ardent Gillingham fan could say that Gillingham deserved anything out of the game. I think that's what he said, which is very, very strong. I'd agree that I think your team showed, for a home team, showed a lack of ambition. I really do think you did. But bearing in mind the things he was saying in his 15-minute post-match, then he was looking for something other than a win. He was looking for kind of a baseline of solidity and effort, and I think he got that from what I see from the Gillingham side. Because he did say, I think he could have dropped 11, and he only dropped and changed 5, didn't he? I think in the starting lineup. So yeah, it was. I think if you look at the highlights, it looks like quite an even game. But from what I remember, I felt a real lack of threat from yourselves in general. We'll go into the goals. I don't want to kind of go into that. And you also had a goal, though, that was offside that I'd love to talk about. Was it offside? It was ruled out anyway later on. That was the
best view, or you? I was right the other
end.
Yeah,
I think I went when the replay went through for our second goal that you mean. Is that yeah. So I think the slight. I mean, mine's slightly askew as well. But my angle did look like you could give it for offside. It wouldn't have been relatively close, but probably like a half a yard offside. When I think Andrews may have taken the original shot. I couldn't quite see what it was, but yeah. But Jaden Clark, I think, was about half a yard offside. I think.
Because the reason I mention that is that it kind of links, again, when we come to the first goal, lead me in, I want to talk about the link between the goalkeeping for that goal and the goalkeeping for the first goal, because glory was not shown there, I'm afraid.
No, we'll get to that, won't we?
Yeah.
I felt the open exchanging were a little bit frenetic. I thought both sides were trying to feel each other out, but also trying to adjust to what were awful conditions for both sides. Everything felt a little bit rushed, and everybody was trying to have an extra touch. The pitch was bobbly, it was windy, it was raining. So was it any real surprise, Reece? I'll come to you that the first chance when it came to the visitors was through Ethan Coleman and Connor Masterson simply not talking to each other. It was a little bit of no, you do it, no, you do it. I think it was it might have been Ashley that put Stockton through on goal.
It was Fauna, but yeah.
Fauna, sorry.
It
Yes,
was, yeah.
it was, yeah, sorry, yeah. It's a good save, Reece, ex-goalkeeper yourself. From Glenn Morris, he's doing his job there, but it was poor from us, and it was almost like
100% poor from us.
Lingering on from Wednesday, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was really just, it was weak. But the thing I couldn't work out from was Marston with the no pass. I couldn't even. I was trying to defend it. Was it a really bad first touch? And you could blame it. No, it was just an aimless pass to nothing. I was just completely perplexed by the whole thing. And actually, it's created the first set of really important saves that Morris had to do. And but it was when that happens in the first 10, 15 minutes, you think, okay, it's Bromley again. We're doing it again. Like, we still have it. That's our default. And I genuinely, when that happened, I was really worried for the rest of the game, considering the conditions of the weather as well. But yeah, it wasn't a great start. It was really poor, and it looked like it could have set the foundation for the whole game, which is what I was initially worried about.
And you say Bromley, you can say Accrington, you can say Newport, you can say Harrogate in recent weeks, you can say Bradford. It was the same things. But interestingly, from our view, it looked like Marston just had a really poor touch and then almost pretended it was a pass so he could blame Coleman. That was what it looked like to me. But either way, it wasn't great. I'll come to you now, Danny. Cole Stockton should score, shouldn't he? He's 1-on-1 with the keeper.
It's not a save. For me, I know the keeper touches it. I was going to just say, then Teresa, I'm going to say that's a miss, because it's the word I put in my notes, and I'm going to talk about in my own podcast later, is the word lazy. It was such a lazy clip finish. I was disgusted with it for a player who was brought in for his finishing ability. Admittedly, probably the vast majority of his goals in his better seasons for Morecambe were outside the box, the worldly category. That's what we always heard about with Cole Stockton. But so lazy. It's almost like he took his eye off the shot before he even made it, and he was kind of almost turning away to celebrate. Maybe I'm imagining that, but it was awful. And I was really unhappy with it, but I wasn't surprised. And it goes back to, again, what Cal talks about, the lack of ruthlessness up front. But I just love to say one thing, actually, that I'm probably not going to mention in my own podcast now, because I'll post this out as kind of a second version of my own, if that makes sense, when I put it out on Twitter, is when I look at the conditions, as you said there, Matt, I think if we played Kouassi, who can be used as a target man much more effectively than Cole Stockton can, that gives us a temptation to play longer. And so I think in order to take that kind of safety valve away and that option away from the team, I think he stuck Stockton in there to say, you've got to play to feet, even though Stockton is nowhere near as good a player. And when things got a bit desperate towards, acting not too far into the second half, I think it was only about 8 minutes into the second half when Killian came on for Ben Woodburn, as you said, who I think his notepad in my notes was a blank page, because he's so forgettable.
54 minutes.
54 minutes, yeah. I genuinely think Cal was trying to remove an option of direct football from our Arsenal because of the conditions. That's my view.
He could be right. Again, I said to Reece, I think just before we press record, before you joined us, Danny, I said from us, certainly in terms of because of our form, I thought it was a game where it was just about getting a win any which way. I thought performance was secondary to anything in them conditions for both sides, regardless. I know more for us because we've not been playing well. You've been picking up points fairly regularly, but certainly from our point of view, I thought it was about a game of just finding a way, and we did with a bit of luck. I totally get that as well, and some poor finishing from Salford City's perspective. Reece, I'm going to come to you because you like to back them quite a lot. The referee was, we always say, I think, and I'm sure Danny will agree, if you don't notice the referee, he's probably done a decent enough job. But when you're noticing him far too regularly, it means that he's wanting to be centre of attention. It's all about him, and generally he's not making the right decisions. Now, it didn't start great for the referee. I mean, it took 3 attempts to get the game started, whether that was through him or us. He also forgot to bring a ball out for the second half, which didn't help anyone when it was freezing cold. The first point I want to talk about, and this is me asking a question, this is not my opinion because, again, I'm a long way away. I thought the referee let a lot go in terms of what could have been yellow cards and what we've seen given as cautions this season, up and down the leagues. I thought Matt Lund got away with one earlier on. He then got booked for a lunge on Elliot Nevitt. Now, from my seat, albeit being quite a way away, I thought there was potential for that card to be a red, maybe an orange, not a yellow. I thought it was over the top of the ball, and I thought his studs were showing. So I'm going to come to you too. Reece, I'll come to you first. What was your view of it? Because obviously I'm looking from behind the challenge, whereas you're looking across towards it, so you can see both players. But at the time, I think I said to Stocky, who I was in the ground with, I said, he's lucky to have got away with that, because I said, now we all get one big one, if that's the tone that he's setting for the game.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've got the same viewpoint as me, hitting that on the head. I think it's one of those where you do say it's a bit of an orange, and I mean I think. Yes, I think that's probably as far as I go with it. It's like I like to do it as percentages. That some refs would give a red, some refs would give a yellow. You know, it works kind of that way. I think somewhere in the middle was probably where that was at. But I think just to go back to a few other points you made as well, I thought that actually the stall that the referee set at the start, I don't think was how it concluded at the end. I guess he's letting a lot go, but then he pulled up on a lot, and I think it was the most inconsistent ref that we had, specifically the first half as well. But yeah, that challenge from Lund was probably an orange card, is probably how I describe that one.
Danny, your view as an Ammies fan?
I know I keep referencing Carl, but when Carl in about a 3 or 4 minute interview is saying that that's one of the best refereeing performances we've had all season, it shows that it wasn't.
Oh, wow.
I can't use the word bias because it's not about that, but it was, the decisions were skewed in one team's favour. And I'll just say again, because you may not have seen many of our recent games, but I've had a feeling in the last 2, and this is maybe our 3rd, we've had extremely favourable referees. It's quite incredible. You know, sometimes that you're so happy that the decisions go your way, you forget that the ref's on your side. We've had it a lot. So the fact that he was probably giving us the benefit of the doubt more than often, and he wasn't doing anything, you know, wasn't sending anybody off, because I think in general, we have now, almost in desperation, we've gone back to a very, very intense, very physical, very up and at 'em approach. The Osama Ashley thing, which was the incident where the lad got taken off on a stretcher, that I don't think anybody's saying that was anybody's fault necessarily, and we can talk about it, but I do think that our underlying style at the moment is almost over physicality. I notice a lot of opposition fans, whether we were at home or away, are incensed by a lot of the tackles that we're making. I'm almost becoming numb to it because I see it so often, but we're not getting punished by the refs a lot. So I believe that Cal's saying, continue, let's carry on. And that's the way we're able to kind of assert ourselves into games and win that territory, especially around midfield. So the fact that Lund did it and Ashley did it and other people get stuck in, it's no surprise to me as someone who's watching Cal's team, who's trying to figure any way he can to get an advantage.
So did you ask my question? Was it a red card?
I don't think so. No, I don't think so. To be perfectly honest, and I watched it as close as I can, I don't actually remember the incident, and that's not me being an Arsene Wenger. I didn't see it, mate. I'm not like that. But it
you
didn't
struggle doing your
register
coat up
on
as
me.
well.
It didn't register with me. It's actually not in my notes at all. Because I see these things so often. I don't. They actually just. It's like a continuous midfield and defensive bully tactic that we try and do. We try and assert that physical dominance. That's the kind of players we're playing at the moment. So it didn't stand out. That's my honest opinion.
Fair enough. And then obviously the second one you've already alluded to, so I'll stick with you, and then I'll go to Reece, was the one on Joe Bode, which was worrying at the time because Joe went down in a really sort of odd manner. It was like he was out cold before he hit the deck. Ref doesn't give a free kick. So regardless if that's an accident or that's on purpose, the fact that our player's been essentially forearm smashed or elbowed in the head, surely that's a free kick for Gillingham.
If that's to me, Matt, well, of course. I mean, come on. I mean, yeah. And that's another one, funnily. I didn't see it because I was writing my notes and I just looked up and saw this fella on the ground in a heap that looked like so awkward, like he'd fell off the top of a building, you know, very odd. And they wouldn't show the replay. I don't think they showed the replay, did they, Reece, at all?
I think they showed it pretty. I think they showed it quickly once, and then it was it. It happened. Right. They showed it very quickly after. Your head still buried down in your notes, no doubt. But it was. I think they showed it very quickly because I sort of drifted off away from it as well. Then caught it, I think, on the replay. Yeah.
Fair enough. But yeah, to me, it's Osama Ashley is a full-blooded merchant. I wouldn't call him dirty in any way, but he's very, very physical. But the idea of that not being a foul, you can have an unintentional foul, can't you? That's fine. That's a restart free kick. That's an advantage to the team that's been fouled. Of course, no problem.
Because that's a worry. If referees in League Two or any level in any country are thinking that's not a problem, then we've got an issue, surely, because you're then looking at player safety.
Yeah. It was. The thing is, the lad, I don't know his name, but the lad who Ashley impacted got ran through. It looked like it was almost like a Sam either didn't see him or was turned slightly away. I'd have to see it again, but it just looked like the guy got ran through like a train hit him, and that impact was like G-force. So it's I think a yellow card for something so unintentional, despite the gravity of it, is maybe going a bit too far. But all you said was free kick, and I'm with that.
Reece, I'll come to you then. Obviously,
yeah. I think it's. I've looked at it a few times, even tweeted about it, and my motion is I was just surprised it wasn't a foul. That was literally where I drew the line. That was like I'm surprised it wasn't a foul because I think it's a footballing incident, and that happens occasionally, and these kind of unintentional contacts happen. I mean, let's not forget we're playing a contact sport. It's an unfortunate one, but if you're, I think. Danny, that you're talking about Salford being a very sort of assertive side and being very physical. And I think if the referee lets a little bit go, you unintentionally allow a little bit more physicality in the game. And I wonder if maybe I can't remember who smacked Bode, but maybe gave an extra 10% through that turn or through that run. It was just enough to make it hit Bode even harder. Do you know what I mean? It's just, but I do think it's more of a footballing incident. But the fact that a player's been knocked out cold and you're calling on the medical staff, I want to say instantly, very quickly, is actually more how I would describe that. Is a worry that's not at least not an advantage just to Gillingham. At least is a drop ball restart of play. I don't know, but it was. I was very surprised about the outcome of that particular incident.
For me, it's a yellow card. I'm going to disagree, Bob. I think it's a yellow card. I know I said a free kick, but. The thing is, we're probably also in shock that he's not given the free kick, that we then forget about what should be happening after that. If Joe Bode's running through and Osama Ashley tries to get the ball but goes through the back of him, he gets a yellow card, and that's an accidental foul. So it's no different for me, but only in the sense that it's probably endangering Joe Bode more than a tackle to his legs, essentially. So for me, it should be a yellow card. But that wasn't the end of the referee being centre of attention. A few minutes later, after the restart, Joe came off, Jack Nolan came on, Jayden Clark goes through, he's one-on-one. It's that man Ashley again, I think, Danny. Jayden Clark's goal side, for me, I was recording it at the time. For me, there's clear contact. Why would Jayden Clark want to go over when he's in the penalty box? He can either shoot or he can square it. For me, it was a stone wall. But I'll come to you first, Danny, as an opposition fan, and then I'll let Reece tell me.
I've not got a firm opinion in terms of that. I'm not Stonewall on that one, but I could have accepted that being given because I can see exactly your point on it. At the time, I just thought, oh, let's play on. Let's just let this go on. That's all right. Let's get to the next. Let's get the ball out of play in a new phase. But yeah, it depends on your perspective. I'm kind of happy to brush over that completely, but I can see it being given. I don't think it was a Stonewall personally, but that's just me.
Reece?
I'm surprised it wasn't given. That's kind of my viewpoint on that one. And I'm the same opinion as you, Matt. I'm Jayden Clark, who is playing out of this whole squad, one of the very few that are playing with a little bit of confidence. I would him going forward. I wouldn't imagine him going down under sort of fake circumstances, and it was a very clumsy tackle as well. It wasn't even a tackle. I think Ashley just sort of tripped and fell down, and I mean it was just a bit just clipped Clark.
He just runs into the back of him, doesn't he?
Yeah, and I think most referees probably give that, and dare I say, particularly because it's in front of the home end as well, that's a bit more, daunting not to give that. So, the referee's got some big hoots to not give that, or he's completely misread the situation. And I think it's more of the latter of that one. But I think 80% of referees probably give that as a penalty.
Yeah, I'd say he's misread it again based on other decisions he made throughout the 90 minutes. Okay, we'll move on to that anyway. So that was that. I think in terms of real chances, there wasn't loads in the first half. You can both feel free to jog my memory. I know Max Clark had one that was straight down the keeper's throat. Salford got into some good areas. But what Danny's alluded to, it comes back to that lack of clinical edge when they get into the final third. That's something that's caused us a few issues as well in recent weeks. Josh Andrews' header drifted wide. Nolan dragged one into the side netting. But I thought the last period of the first period was fairly nondescript, Danny.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because you mentioned earlier on that the ref let a lot go, but also it just felt like a very stop-start game as well. It was weird. There didn't seem to be a lot of momentum. And if I'm talking about the chances that stick in my mind, apart from I think Cole Stockton's lazy little clip was in the first half, then I'm looking forward to talking about the openings that we created. I wouldn't even call them chances in the end that we created in the second half when we brought some subs on. So yeah, I'm happy to pass on that.
Okie dokie. And Reece?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing, during my video, I got really frustrated with Josh Andrews' header. I got really frustrated with it.
Okay.
I think maybe it was more an emotional response at the time, but he had he had 4 yards around him and no Salford defenders. And I just thought, I know you're not under pressure here, and I know you've probably got to head that, but I don't know. At the time, I thought he should be doing a lot better. The fact that it was completely unopposed with the header. I mean, but at the time I wanted him to take it down. I thought he could have done, but I've looked back again and got maybe that's a little bit harsh. But that's the only thing I would say was that he wasn't under any pressure, and I think Andrews himself knows he could do probably a little bit better with that. Could he really score from there? It would have to be some looping header over the goalkeeper, Young. But that's a little bit harsh for me. So I'm happy to pass over from there.
I will agree with you. I think you are being harsh. I didn't think there was a lot of pace on the ball. He was having to generate it all, and I think he was outside the 6-yard box as well. So it was. I mean, obviously that's right in my end, so I can give more of an opinion on that rather than at the other end where you come into play and that type of thing. But yeah, that was half time. It was a typical windy, cold, rainy League 2 45 minutes. But there was some cheer immediately after the restart for Gills. Reece, from our point of view, it's a really good goal in the sense that Max Clark, when he gets the ball back, when he pinches possession after the corner's been, dare I say, flapped at by Matt Young, he can not take responsibility, but he can say, right, I'm going to put this into an area. And then it's up to a Josh Andrews or an Elliot Nevitt to go and find some space and get into a position to be able to tap it in. But what he does is he's really good, and he looks up before he plays that ball. He cuts it back because he knows that Jaden Clark's hovering edge of the box. I think it's a really good finish from Jaden Clark in them conditions, because instead of lashing at it, I think he sort of goes with an instep / side foot to make sure that he hits the target. And it ends up in the back of the net. I think there's someone on the line trying to keep it out. There's a deflection at some point, but I'm not sure whether it makes too much of a difference. I couldn't work out whether it had gone past the keeper by then as well. So, number one, I'll come to you and say, from our point of view, it's a good goal. There's awareness and a smart finish. And then I'll come to Danny afterwards and talk about the defensive side of things from his team.
I just want to see, one of the points that you just raised is one I wanted to say about Max Clark's vision. And I think that's because it's very easy when you're playing a little bit much confidence, haven't really been the team, just to blast that across the box, and you've Andrews in there, he might get on the end of this. I think it's a little bit of clever football. And also, like, out of all players that we have at the moment, that ball that Max Clark passes, the only person I want that to be on the end of it is Jaden Clark at the moment, because I just think he's the one that's scoring the goals. He's the one that's playing with a bit more confidence. And I genuinely think that Nevitt can score those, Josh Andrews can score those. There's a whole host, the whole team can score those. But I think at that moment, I genuinely think Clark may have been the only person that would have been a bit clever with it and found the target, as you said, side-foot it with power. I do think he was probably the only one that probably would have found the back of the net. So I was very happy it fell to him, actually. It was a lovely finish. But the assist as well is also very clever.
Now I'll let you dissect your goalkeeper flapping like a baby sparrow, and then
Please,
whoever it
now,
was.
come
Was
on.
it Fauna trying to
He's only 18. Come on.
young by name and young by
Young by
Yes, yeah.
nature, yeah.
Fair enough. But,
He's just 18. Yeah.
if he's good enough, he's old enough, and all that. Maybe he wasn't quite ready, but we joke. But to be fair, it's not him that's the bigger problem. It's the bigger problem comes when your midfielder then decides to play
Tyrese
tries to try and run out of it, and has it pinched off him in the final third.
Yeah. So just to give you a bit of context here, Matty Young is a massively high-profile loanee from Sunderland, who's the England under-20 goalkeeper, massive reputation, the next Jordan Pickford, and everything I've heard about his development to this point is that he is going to be something tremendously special. And I would say he's only just won the starting job in the league. He's played a lot of cup games, Bristol Street, whatever it's called, Papa John's, I forget what the name is. But the last 2 games, including yesterday, have been his first 2 league starts in his career.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been very impressed with the majority of what he's done. He doesn't look like an 18-year-old. I think you might say. I mean, he doesn't look like a kid. He's built like a man. He's got command. But I've been looking desperately in the times he's played for holes in his game. What is he not good at? And you said, I don't know what you're liking it to. There was the word flap was in my notes. You mentioned the word flap. That was exactly what it was. I think there may have been an issue with one of our pre-season games against FC United where there was something coming into the box that he kind of approached in the same way, very unconvincing. So that's something now that is a red flag to me I'm going to be watching. I think he actually did well to get down to it, to attempt to save the shot when it came back in. But that's Matty Young. I'm on alert now to watch for high balls into the box. But Tyrese Fauna is an extremely frustrating player it was at first to just a few of the fans who were thinking he's a little bit greedy, he's a little bit of a schoolboy footballer. But I thought in the first half, he'd curtailed that and he played very disciplined. 1 or 2 touch football, which is exactly what I think Cal wants because it gets us from back to front quick, but in an accurate way. When Tyrese starts to go back to the Wilf Zaha cage footballer mentality from like South London or whatever it is, which I think is his upbringing, that's when things go wrong, especially when you do it at the edge of your box. That's I'm not going to say anything stronger than that, but it's very, very frustrating. That's not the kind of risk that Cal wants us to take. So there's a flap, and then there's a mental aberration from Tyrese that creates that good finish, though.
It's time and place, isn't it? I think it's probably where you do that type of thing. If you're running at Max Clark on the edge of our box, you can try it, no problem at all. It's lower risk, but to be doing it on the edge of your own penalty area at 0-0 in a game that wasn't going to have loads of clear-cut chances was a little bit silly, I think we'll say.
100%.
We've already spoken about the offside goal afterwards. It was either Josh Andrews or Jack Nolan had a drive. Young saves it, pushes it out into a dangerous area. Jayden Clark does what you want him to do. That's tap it in. The linesman's flag goes up. I didn't think Jayden Clark complained too much, so we'll give the benefit of the doubt to the officials on that one.
Did you see, just on that though, Matt, did you see how far out the shot was?
Again, I'm not sure because I lose perspective when it's that far out, because it's like when you get a free kick and you go, can we shoot from there? Is it, because sometimes you think, it's only sort of a couple of yards outside the D, but it's not. It's about 40 yards out.
It was, to me, I watched it twice this morning and I was really surprised. So it's definitely outside the D of the penalty area. So that's 18 plus, I think. And then it feels like it's about another 3 or 4 yards in front of that. And it feels like a speculative shot. It doesn't feel like I'm really going with it. It's almost like one of those where you think, I'd rather kind of hit it wide so we can defensively reset. Sometimes teams do that. Rather than lose the ball in transition, they'll shoot, then they can actually get the 4-4-2 lined up again. So, but the spill's the most important thing to me. And again, I didn't know that Reece was a very promising young goalkeeper once, but as I was potentially. But the secret is when you're a goalkeeper, there are certain areas that you don't push that ball back into, and that's the area. You know, you don't put it back into play like that. And it's funny because, again, I keep going about Cal Robertson's press conferences, but there was a double save made by Matty Young in one of the recent games, maybe our last game. Brilliant double save, but Cal said, he shouldn't have spilled the first one. And that was in the previous match. And I would look at the distance that ball travelled, and I think either Matty's positioning or his handling is at fault there. I know he's a young lad, but I think something's wrong there to why the ball was spilled that way, as to why he wasn't able to retain it better. And that's where I think the problem was, because it's actually a very similar thing happened in maybe one of the cup games recently with Matty in goal. It came off his chest and cannoned out. A goal was scored that was ruled offside or something else. So he's been quite fortunate in that respect in recent games as our keeper.
I think also just to compound that, I'm sure the conditions don't favour goalkeepers in that regard. And I wonder, of course, I wonder if the shot, as you say, was a resetting shot. But at the same merit in conditions like this, as I think Max Clark's shot in the first half, it went straight into Young's midriff. And it's one of those things, I wonder if you just take one of those shots and dip it in front of the goalkeeper a couple of yards, it becomes extremely difficult to save. But I do agree with you, Danny, that if you're going to have to, if you can't hold the ball, you're going to have to move it away somewhere just for the safety purposes. And I think, again, I think Young was very lucky that Jaden Clark took his run a little bit, half a second too early. Otherwise, it would have been doubling the lead and well out of sight. But yeah, maybe, I thought he got away with one there as well.
Yeah, you either put it out for a corner or you hold it, don't you? And maybe that comes because he's thinking about the flat for the goal, which was literally 2 minutes beforehand. It could have been playing on his mind. I mean, we don't know. We can only surmise. Carl Robinson reacted. There was some changes in the game from both sides, but he threw on Kouassi for the ineffective Ben Woodburn. I think we brought on Josh Andrews. No, we took off Josh Andrews shortly afterwards, but on Romeo Hutton. I thought Mark Bonner was brave with that change, Reece, because the obvious change if you're bringing on Romeo Hutton is to go to a back five there. Well, if we could, but we'd have had obviously some people out of position because we had two right backs. But he was brave in not disturbing a back four that was holding firm, not without risks. I get that. And it was also testament to the performance of Harry Webster that he wasn't taken off. But it was great to see Josh get through 65 minutes. I think after that, we had Johnny Williams came on for Jaden Clark, who'd got booked along with Curtis Tilt for a little bit of handbags we don't need to talk about. But I felt from our point of view, Reece, that in that period for sort of 15 minutes after the goal, probably up to sort of 65, 70, there was not a lot going on, which is what we want. And we were managing the game fairly well.
I thought we were. I thought, I thought we did manage up until that point quite well. There's always that risk because, as you know, of recent, when we go 1-0 up, we're not good at holding these leads. No. And that's always sickening in my mind. And even when we go 1-0 up and thinking, right, okay, are we going to try and hold on to this with these conditions? It's going to be really challenging. But yeah, for the subsequent 15 minutes, we did okay. But within that 15 minutes, I don't think we really put any threat on Salford. And I think it was just slowly growing into the fact that it was eventually going to turn to be attack versus defence. And even though we had a little bit of control on that our 15 minutes after the goal, I could see it. That was the path we were on. And that for me was terrifying because I thought, here we go again. And I thought it was going to go down the route. And as we'll probably talk about now, I kind of think Salford should at least got on the score sheet yesterday.
How much of an impact did Conor McElhenney make in a positive sense for you, Danny? Because it seemed that your best spell of the second half came once McElhenney came on. You took off Haji Minoga and gambled a little bit. I mean, in the sense that you're taking off a defensive player and bringing on.
Can we talk about our message about Haji? Can we talk about that?
Yeah, we can talk about Haji. I thought he was decent, to be fair.
Yeah.
I mean, when he was upright. I laughed at the 10 minutes after 10 minutes and said, well, he stayed on the Priestfield pitch longer than he did when he made his debut for us because he got sent off after that. And I don't think he played on that pitch. Yes, you literally messaged me and I saw it flash up and sorry, I couldn't reply because my hands weren't working.
Yeah.
But I think literally 2 minutes afterwards, he just flung himself to the floor and I had a little laugh to myself. But when he was upright, he was decent enough.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's crazy because I don't know anything about his background. I know he's been with yourselves for a time. I think he was with Aldershot maybe last season, and he's been at Portsmouth. But I can't understand why a player who has the ability that he seems to have at sometimes, Cal keeps calling him very inconsistent, which is, I think it's true, and it's quite brave of Cal to do that openly in press conferences. But he seeks contact rather than actually trying to do something. It looks like he's. I don't watch Man City very much, but Jack Grealish seems to be a contact seeker. He looks to be trying to, or at least he was in his Aston Villa days, he's trying to get fouled in order to get a free kick somewhere on the edge of the opposition penalty area, and that's good enough. That's his job done. And I actually think that Hadji's better than that. For someone with his frame, he's actually a very strong lad. He's quite quick, and he's quite good in the air. We used him as a wide target man at some points, I think, in the first half, him and Matty Lund over on the right-hand side. So, because we didn't have really an aerial threat down the middle. So it was... It's an odd one, but yeah, it frustrates me when players start to go into that dark arts of the game, and I find it distasteful, even if it's my own team, you know. So I forgot what your question was, Matt. I've got lost in the Hadji Minogue rabbit hole. Sorry.
I'm just going to say that he's probably pleased that he's been compared to Jack Grealish today.
Yeah, there you go.
We'll put that out. We'll tag him in it, and he can save that one for eternity.
Conor McAleny.
How much of a positive impact did McAleny make?
I
thought he'd come on and he showed probably the most, along with Kouassi, but in different ways.
Yeah.
I think Kouassi occupies space, occupies defenders, whereas McAleny, you notice him a bit more because he wants to get on the ball, he wants to beat his man, he likes to get his shots off. But I thought both had a positive impact. But it just seemed you had your best spell after that change, and that's when your two real chances in the second period came along.
Right, let's go. So, Conor McAleny, there was a few people after the game who were contacting on a supporters WhatsApp channel saying that Conor McAleny now needs to start games because Ben Woodburn, as you said, I don't know if you've also agreed, Reece, but I think us as fans, the Salford side, think that Ben is quite anonymous in games, and the fact he's dropped 2 divisions from the Championship where he's at Preston to ourselves, you'd expect someone to be a bit more dominant, and he's not. But Conor McAleny, when he was a guaranteed starter under our previous manager, Neil Wood, Conor McAleny coasted through games and didn't do very much, and basically put the handbrake on and said, I can just get away with doing very, very little. Under Carl, he's not been able to do that. And then at the first sign of Conor coasting through games, he's been dropped, and he's been dropped a lot this season. He's played very, very little. But he's one of them players who needs to be reminded that he needs to put his maximum effort in. And you've seen yesterday what that pocket rocket can be when he comes on. And I will say one other thing is that we've not talked about our right centre-back yet, Tom Edwards, another one who's dropped 2 divisions. He came to us from Huddersfield the end of last season and came to us. He is not the greatest athlete in the world, but he is an exceptional long passer. And you may have noticed some switches of play from deep right to wide left to find Conor on at least 2 occasions. And he also was bringing Kylian Kouassi into play. There was a significant amount, I would say, in the last portion of the game of out-to-in runs from our left-hand side. And they were always being found by an absolute 9-iron chip shot from Tom Edwards, 50 yards onto a sixpence. But the problem is, even though that was creating good chances for us, which we'll talk about, scoreless. We were getting people into positions, and then it was fluffed.
I think McAlany's first chance, was that diagonal, wasn't it? It came to him, and then he sort of shifted his weight, and it ended up, I think, nearer the corner flag, to be fair. But it was least intent. Reece, just as a side note, there's another sport that we can add as a reference. We like adding other sport references. We've had cricket, we've had darts, we've had snooker, we've now had golf. We've done his 9-iron chip, so that's good. We can add that to the list.
Get your bingo cards ready.
We do like it. Yeah, we do like it. What we've had corridor of uncertainty, haven't we?
Yeah.
We've had breaks of serving tennis, holes of throwing darts. Yeah, we do like them. It
was a quarterback pass, really, I think.
It goes NFL as well.
NFL, wow. There you go.
One fair player like this. You can come back. Let's talk about the 2 chances then. I think the first one falls to Kouassi, and I'd say that's the more... I'll come to you, Reece, first, because it's my show and I can. I forgot what I was going to say.
Blunt, I like it.
I thought the first save is one that you'd expect Glenn Morris to make. And then the second one, which I think was from McAleny again, is a top save. That's a really good save where you'd say, he's probably least favourite to in a long-winded way, which I've messed up completely here, but we don't edit, so it'll stay in, is... In that situation, you'd say it favours the striker to score, whereas the first effort, you'd say, I'd be disappointed if Glenn Morris don't keep it out. Work that out and then try and answer what I've just said.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that in some weird way. But what I will say is, the first one, I expect Morris to say that, and I think he'd be disappointed if he doesn't. A man of his experience should always be saving that. But then the second one, is I think that is for Malcolm Henry is a really good save. But I'm sure Danny has a slightly different perspective of this. But if I'm a Salford fan watching that, I'm probably devastated that one of those got on the back of the net and has equalised the game, because they are two really, let's be honest, clear-cut opportunities. And considering the conditions, you should be at least putting one in the back of the net. And knowing our recent luck, I wouldn't have been surprised if both of those went in the back of the net and we'd end up losing 2-1. And I'm kind of sort of counting them in lucky eggs, what you call chickens, whatever the phrase, I don't know. But I kind of feel like Morris has really kept us in the game there, albeit I think Salford should have found one of those in the back of the net anyway.
I know you're going to slightly disagree, Danny, because you alluded to them as openings rather than clear-cut chances, which Reece has labelled them as then. So what did you make of the two late chances for Kouassi and then Conor McElhenney?
Well, to be honest, I mean, I think you've covered those well. The ones I really want to talk about are the ones where they were those that give you that adrenaline, extra quick heartbeat, and you just think, oh, right, because they were both. Kouassi was involved in at least maybe two others where it looked like he was put in at least once by Cole Stockton, and Kouassi is a strong man. I'll tell you that. There's things you can say about Killian Kouassi that he's not this and he's not that. He is a very, very strong fella, only because I see players rebounding off him like he's made of granite. So he doesn't lack for natural strength, and he's quick. And the very odd thing that I'm finding at the minute, because he seems to be on a bit of a low ebb of confidence, is that strength, when he gets the right side of a defender, when he gets an inside like little channel to be able to run into, and he gets the ball, and it looks like he's free of the defenders, how are they muscling him off the ball or catching him over about a 2 or 3 yard spell? How is he not getting a shot off? That, to me, is the most frustrating thing. And it just makes me think years ago when Raheem Sterling was at Man City. I'm not a City fan. I know I keep referencing City players, but I'm not. That Raheem Sterling had a period where he was brilliant and he was excellent. And then suddenly he started to lose his confidence. And he used to be quite a strong player for his size. He's quite a small lad. But when his confidence dwindled, so did his kind of stature on the pitch. And I'm finding that there's similar things happening with Killian Kouassi at the moment. He still weighs the same, but his confidence and his energy within his body at the moment doesn't seem to be there. So I would say that the ones you've not even talked about, where he should have got a shot off, they're the ones that disappoint me most, because a fella that big and that quick should be getting away from defences over a 2 or 3 yard spurt, and he should be getting a shot on goal. Whether he scores or not, that's a different story, but he didn't even shoot on some of those because he was blocked.
Yeah, I did miss that one. I'm just looking back through the live blog on the Salford City website. Actually, 70 minutes. It says more good intent from Salford as the ball is played into Stockton. He holds up and plays it through to Kouassi, but he's covered off before finding a chance.
Yeah, seeing it too often now. Don't like it, but you know.
We made a couple of changes late on. I think Reece that was certainly just to run down the clock and probably to give Harry Webster the ovation that his performance certainly merited. And I'm not saying that Harry Webster was perfect, but he was, for a league debut for a kid of 18, was very, very good. So it was him and Elliot Nevitt withdrawn. Bradley Dack made his long-awaited return for a solid 120 seconds. So we're obviously going to win the league now. And Shad Ogie was the other player to be introduced. It was just to run down the clock, wasn't it? And to bolster a backline. And you can understand, we've had this chat before plenty of times with various Gills managers about going too defensive, but for 5 minutes of injury time, you can understand why it was done. And from our point of view, luckily, the remaining few minutes of said injury time passed without any real incident, and we managed to pick up certainly a well-needed 3 points. Whether it was well-deserved is probably open for a little bit of debate, but as we've already said, when you're playing as we are, and in conditions like that against a side that were in decent enough form, it was just about finding a way, and we somehow managed to, by hook or by crook, get over the line and get the 3 points.
Which is the most important thing, right? And I want to give Webster the amount, the credit he deserves. It was, I mean, you could look at Clark's influence on the game by scoring. You look at Morris, who made a couple of decent saves. But actually, for someone that's come into a team that's, let's be honest, is underperforming with lack of confidence, and to be a standout player at right back, I thought Webster was excellent yesterday. And if it was me giving the man the match, it probably would have gone to him. I did overhear the Tannoy system give it to Jayden Clark, which I also understand as well. I get that because he was the goal scorer, of course. But for me, because of the context of why Webster's there, for me, he gets man of the match 100% from me. I also just want to ask, like, both of you, like, do you think both teams yesterday used the conditions to their advantage at all? Because I thought there was a lot of opportunity to make it difficult for opposition goalkeepers, more so than I thought there were yesterday. And it's windy, it's wet, it's skiddy, and I just thought maybe no one really used it fully to the advantage that it could have done. I don't know what you thought, because I've seen games like this be like 4-4 because the conditions are awful. And for me, I was just I thought team
none of them
used
none of them games involved Gillingham or Salford.
probably not. No.
No, it's true on that, because, again, going back to Carl, I didn't realise this. We've not scored more than 2 goals in a game this season, which Carl, I think he's trying to mentally disassociate himself with saying, my teams score more than 2 goals. Well, sorry, this is your team, Carl. These are your players. He's brought 15 in. He coaches them every week, and they're not scoring goals. I know he can't get his kit on and go and put the ball in the back of the net, but they represent him and his coaching, and also his decisions that I think he's partly involved in recruitment. So yeah. But in terms of the conditions, as I said, the only thing I've got to say about the conditions is that I think was it massively gale force at the game? Was it 50 mile an hour? I don't know. I wasn't there.
It wasn't 50 mile an hour, but it was, it was more than a breeze. Let's put it that way.
It affected the ball's flight, did it?
I think it got stronger as the first half went on, because I remember there was one spot kick from Young right just before the halftime whistle blew, and you literally see it get to halfway, and then it started. I don't know if you remember it. And Elliot Nevitt almost ran through on goal, but got cut off. But it literally started coming back towards us.
Okay, that's interesting. I just want to say the 2 final things, if I just could, to say, because I'm surprised you've not highlighted the Matty Young step over that was nearly a goal. Do you remember that?
Oh yes, second half. The back
what are you
pass
doing,
that he just sort of let it go. And he also nearly ran into the far post. I thought he was going to run into the far post as well.
I hope he don't see this, because, like, he's only a young lad and everything. I'm sure he's self-confident, but these things happened. I'm sure he'd be honest enough to admit it. But again, another one where I have took my eye off it, making notes, and looked back up, and I thought, why is he running back to his own goal? And thankfully, they did show a replay of that, because it wasn't a harrowing thing. Because there was nothing wrong with the pass from Tom Edwards for me. It was a normal pass.
Which is weird, because my seat at the other end, I thought it looked like the back pass was miles away from the keeper, and he was having to sort of perform a rescue act.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah. So yeah, I wanted to make sure that was in. That was something I desperately wanted to say. But it's interesting you talk about the ball's flight, about it dying. I've seen enough of Matty Young to know how his body shape as he connects with the ball. But I noticed yesterday, whether it was pre-game practice, because it's been very windy the last few days round and about in the northwest, and so we're probably expecting it to be quite the same in Gillingham, that the actual dip that he was getting on his goal kicks and any kicking that he was doing was very different, and I could tell that he was having to do something with his body to get the backspin on it, because I don't think he wanted the ball sailing up into the air where it would be more subject to the vagaries of the wind. And I think he was trying to keep it flatter. And that was something I'm not saying it's because he's a young goalkeeper, but I don't think it's something he's practiced very often, to get that much dip and to keep it that flat. So to me, as someone who's seen him quite a lot, I thought he was trying to adjust his distribution a lot because of the conditions to play into this little segment we're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's fair enough. You have to adjust. We say it about football every week, don't we? You have to adjust to situations, and that was a situation that needed adjusting to yesterday. One final thing on the referee was the second half. Glenn Morris a couple of times had the ball in his hand, and Kylian Kouassi decided he was going to stand in front of Glenn. Now, the first time Glenn sort of waving to get the referee's attention to say he's stopping a restart. Kouassi didn't move. I think at one point I shouted out, just kick it at him. He'll move if he takes one in the ear roll, because it'll hurt. But he didn't. And then it happened again a few minutes later. So Glenn had to do what he was doing, which was kick the ball, because he's going to get done for time wasting. It strikes Kouassi in the stomach or the backside. Why is that not a yellow card? It's a deliberate stopping of a restart.
Yeah, it's a good question. That's a really good question, Matt. For me, it's because that was written in the rule books quite a while ago, actually, that you can't stand in front of the keeper. It's a form of dissent. Yeah,
that's it. And some decisions are objective, some are subjective. This isn't a referee's opinion of whether he thinks it's a foul or it's gone out of play. That's that's just a factual thing that's in the rule book. Like you say, it's if you stop a restart,
isn't it?
you get a yellow card. Yeah. There's no which side of the line you fall on. It's black and white.
And then it's an indirect free kick, and that's what I think the rule is. That's how it should be. That's my understanding of it. So that's that. So good question, because I don't know the answer from the referee's perspective at all.
I'm going to come to you now, Danny.
I can tell you both this though, Matt, is that is not that is at least the second or third game in a row that Killian Kawase has done that to an opposition goalkeeper. So it's obviously something that maybe Carl and him or the coaches have dreamed up and said, let's get our biggest unit, because there's no point doing it with Ben Woodburn. You can see over him from miles away. So Killian Kawase, I've not actually stood next to him, but I know from the way that players bounce off him that he's just a bit of a giant. So if you're 5 yards away and trying to get a kick, I probably can't see anything else. It's like you can't see the sun. So yeah, it's clever, but it's one of those underhand kind of tiny marginal advantages that Cal Robinson is known for trying to get until he's punished for it. When it stops being an advantage to us, then we'll stop.
Which is what we've said loads of times about referees. You keep trying to get away with it if the referee's not doing his job and not punishing you accordingly. I'm guessing, not to put words in your mouth, but I'd imagine your overriding emotion after that was a bit of frustration, wasn't it, Danny?
Frustration, because it's funny, because results, I mean, I've not said this to you before, but results to me, not just because it's this time of the season, are much less important to me as a fan because of what I'm looking for in a game. I'm looking for what's next. I'm looking for predictive aspects of what our players doing. What our players, like Tyrese Fornah, are they curtailing the play that's hindering the team, or are they actually playing as part of a team? Is our young goalkeeper who's been given his head and got 2 games in a row in the league, is he looking more or less confident? What does that indicate for next? So I'm less going to go on the result, but one player that we've kind of brushed over a little bit, he did get a chance. Cole Stockton has been a tremendously unpopular signing for virtually every Salford fan. But I actually thought mid to late second half, I thought he was integral to creating chances for Killian. Those chances would not have happened without somebody with a bit of silk and a bit of a layoff ability like Cole did. So Cole, to me, is a write-off. A lot of players have thought he'd been playing recently because he's been put in the shop window to try and get rid of him. But if he can rebound to usable status, even just a bench player, that's a big bonus from where he's been most of the season. And if Tyrese Fornah can stop thinking he's back playing cage football with Will Zaha, that's a big deal to us. And if that's an aberration for Matty Young and not a consistent nosedive in his form and confidence, there's positives there. And I actually think, and again, sometimes Cal blows his own trumpet too much in the post-match.
No.
Well, I know. Who would have thought it? Every
stuff like that.
I know. Because I tend to sit in the away end. If I go to an away match, I normally sit I only sit in the home end for a better view. And it's amazing how unpopular he is up and down this aisle. Everybody hates him, whether it's because they're playing against MK Dons or whether it's there's some kind of beef about his behaviour or something about or the fact he's a Scouser. Don't know. So he rubs people up the wrong way. But I look at what he's trying to do, and I think there's not many coaches who could have taken us from where we were dead on arrival under Neil Wood to where we are now. So I give him a lot of credit for that. So yesterday's result to me is relatively meaningless. I probably shouldn't say that. It's probably not a popular thing to say as a content creator, but it doesn't matter to me. What matters is where are we heading, and there's still signs, despite the fact that we lost and we didn't score, that we are deserving at least of mid-table, which is better than last season. That's good for me.
That's signs of progress, isn't it? If you're looking for progress, it
is.
So as frustrating as with the chances you've had that you didn't get something from the game, you're seeing stuff that's giving you confidence that moving forward you win more football matches than you don't.
Could I say one last thing as well, Matt, just about your manager? I've not seen much of him. I don't know much about him at all, but I did watch him. I did watch our press conference with Carl after the game, and I kind of backed it with Mark Bonners, and I thought, is this the same? Why is this approach so different? Because Carl's is very short and spiky, as it tends to be, and Mark's was very kind of, the word I just find, I don't know if you'd all agree, is very open. Yes, he won, so he's going to be quite positive about it. But I just looked at it and I thought, what is Carl hiding? What is he afraid of being asked? Why does he want to keep it so short? Why is he making, I think, what is a club employee who's interviewing him, why he's regularly making them feel very, very uncomfortable when they stray into certain areas and ask certain questions. And it gets very, very awkward. And I just thought it was so refreshing to see someone answer multiple questions from multiple sources and answer them in what felt to me like a very open and informative way. I felt like I learnt something. I don't know much about Gillingham at all, but he actually criticised without being. I don't think his Mark's players could have been disgusted with him. So he gave me enough in terms of integrity, but I just liked his approach compared to Carl's purely in the post-match.
I think we've said that about him all season, haven't we, Reece? Since he arrived, that he's straight down the middle. He come out a few weeks ago. I said it in a previous episode. He said, I wasn't the best manager for the 2 months in the season when we'd got 19 points from 8 games, but it doesn't make me the worst manager in the league when we'd gone on a run of 5 or 6 defeats in a row. He is, I think, and I think he's good at remaining somewhere in the middle ground. He doesn't get too high, he doesn't get too low, and I think there's probably only been one press conference that I've completely disagreed with all season, and I like that. In terms of positives for us, Reece, there was quite a few, to be fair, in a game that wasn't, like we say a lot of times, if it was a film, it'd probably go straight to DVD. Winning a clean sheet, massive, regardless of how you get them. 65 minutes in the bank for Josh Andrews' first start in the league, I believe. 90 minutes for Nevitt, that'll do him really good. Joe Bode is okay, was having photos outside the ground afterwards, but might miss MK Dons because of protocols regarding concussion and that type of thing. Bradley Dack and Aaron Rowe back in the squad, but I think we have to finish with Harry Webster, because that, as a first start in the league, which is completely different to playing trophy games in stadiums that are probably a third full with very little atmosphere, pressure's off a lot more. I don't care what anyone says, like, everyone's got an opinion on the league trophy and its current guys, but he wasn't perfect. He made some errors. At times he looked like an 18-year-old, but I thought, coming up against a player like Amai, not once did he shrink, not once did he go and hide. He kept wanting the ball. He kept going to get involved with 50-50s. He got whacked by Cole Stockton a couple of times. He just got up. He didn't roll around. He just kept bouncing back up. I thought he was really, really good, and that gives us a real. That's essentially a new signing. If this kid can produce something around that level in a league game moving forward.
What stuck out to me yesterday with Webster is, now I don't anymore, but for 6-7 years I ran the varsity football team at our school, and his performance yesterday reminded me of students that just play in the schoolboy way. There's no dramatics. They just get told instructions. This is your role. This is what you do, and this is how I'd like you to do it. And they go, yep, and they do it. And they will make mistakes, but they get up and they go back and they retry their role again. And I thought that's exactly what he did yesterday. It felt like a very sort of very positive schoolboy way of approaching it, which is a really strong way to do it. He just had a role. This is what my teachers told me to do, and this is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to keep going until I get told otherwise. And it just felt like that. And he did it really well yesterday. And I'm really happy, like you say, it does feel like a new signing. And also, there's now competition in the area of the park, right? And I think that can only be positive, considering that, I think some right and left back, they're always yearning out for a bit more competition. Hutton's got to be looking over his shoulder now. He's got some competition that he's going to have to fight with for that place, and that can only be a positive thing for me. So I thought Webster was excellent. That's why, for me, he was my man in the match.
And just to allude it back to Danny's point regarding Forner, who he said played in that sort of schoolboy mentality, but Webster did it better in the sense that he picked the right places to play in certain ways, and he almost said to himself, I'm going to make sure I do the basics right. I'm not going to do anything over flashy. I'm not going to try and be Romeo Hutton. I'm just going to play to my strengths, and we'll see where that takes us. And for me, if he's fit next week, he starts the game at MK Dons. It'll be another massive test, don't get me wrong, against a side that's playing well. But he's got the shirt now, and he's done nothing wrong to lose it for the next game.
I'd just say this if I could, Matt.
Of course you can.
I mean, you've referenced he's on the right and he's playing up against Kelly and Mai. We talked in the preview. Kelly and Mai, you can't sleep on that boy.
No,
you cannot because you talked about the goal contributions, which is basically 1 in 2, which is very, very good at this level. Kelly has put on some beef in the off season. He's been in the gym. He is bulked out, so he's not just ultra quick. His delivery in general is rank, is Kelly. So his delivery is not going to be the thing you remember him for, but he can get past most fullbacks very, very easily. So the fact that the only time he tends to suffer is when he's up against a very, very strong fullback who can keep him in front of them and can put body pressure into his back and just flatten poor Kelly onto the floor. Free kick, we restart. But I don't think being an 18-year-old lad himself, he could do that. I did see Kelly rolling him a few times, which he can't normally do against most fullbacks. But I did see Kelly. He's full of ideas. He's never beaten, and he'll try his heart out. But I didn't see him. I think what did Matt Bonner say? The mistakes he makes, this lad are honest. They're the honest mistakes. And I didn't see any gaffes from him really against Kelly. So that was a test, and he passed it. But it's one swallow doesn't make a summer, as they say.
Oh, absolutely.
We'll see.
Absolutely.
I know you're not saying it does, but it's just it's an indicator. That's all.
That's it. And I think I just want to finish up. So thanks to you two gents, obviously. Always enjoy talking to you, Danny. So appreciate you coming on again. We always say it's never nice talking about a defeat. No one likes doing it. No one likes doing it. And Reece, thank you again. I know you've not been feeling great, but I just want to finish up. And this actually did involve Mai. I do hope the Gillingham fan in the Rainham end is okay, because she took a ball to the face, full-blooded from Mai in the Rainham end yesterday. He was trying to reach for a cross and got there too late, and it did catch her flush, and she was taken off for medical attention. So if anyone can let us know if that lady is okay, that'd be great to know. But yeah, as always, thanks for watching, everybody. Gills fans, Salford fans, neutrals, I always do appreciate it, and I always ask, please hit that like button and please continue to subscribe. Go and watch Reece's video of said game and said win. As we've already told you, check out Danny's content because it's absolutely superb, everything regarding Salford City. We'll be back middle of the week with an MK Dons fan to preview what will be another tough test for Mark Bonner's men next weekend. And of course, we'll return to Stadium MK, myself, Ava and Nick for a Matchday Live. But until then, I hope you've had a good weekend, and most importantly, up the Gills.